Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome back to the Commanders. This is the beta patch 2.3 for Elite Dangerous. Now as you can see on the screen, we've finally got access to Multi-Crew. Frontier enabled this on the servers today with a small update, and we can now jump into other people's ships. So on the tab here at the top on the comms panel, if you go along, you can open up your ship to any of the activities listed here. You can find a mentor, do a bit of piracy, jump into some bounty hunting, do some mining, do some exploration, or even do a bit of smuggling. Or you can simply join a ship with the same rule sets. I've chosen bounty hunting here, and we're about to load up into someone else's ship. And here you can see I've joined the crew of Commander Muti-Crew. So thank you, Commander, for allowing me to join your crew here and allowing me to film for YouTube. And there you can see the roles available on this ship. There's one gunner position and two fighter positions as well. So I'm going to take up the gunner role. And before I do that, I need to set the key bindings. Now you'll need to do this yourself as well when you first jump into a multi-crew role. Unless of course you use one of the default bindings. But if you're using your pre-established bindings, the ones you've already got set, then you won't have any key bindings set for the multi-crew functions. So you will need to jump into the main menu, go to controls, and go straight down to the multi-crew section here at the bottom. And I'll do a very quick run through here. Mode toggle is very important. That's the button that you press to enable the gunner role. You can toggle between the gunner role and back to your seat. And of course you've got primary fire and secondary fire, which you're used to on your ship at the moment. And what's new are primary utility fire and secondary utility fire. Essentially this gives you 4 fire buttons. We only normally have 2, so when you're in a multi-crew position you do have 4. And that simply allows you to fire a utility such as chaff or a heat sink or anything else. And of course you will need to bind a yaw axis, a pitch axis, and if you want an FOV axis. Now FOV is pretty self-explanatory, but it essentially allows you to view out, zoom out a little bit on your view and zoom in a little bit on your perspective. Now you'll see a little bit of rubber banding going on there in the background, and you can still use the free cam as well. So the free cam works fine, but the rubber banding seems to be to do with a little bit of latency between the crew members. And the final thing you're going to need to do before you head into the gunner position is to make sure you've bound your fire groups. So we're ready to go at last, and we're now out here in the turret view. You can see on the left and right of the HUD there, it's displaying my weapons for multi-cannons. In this case, the 2 on the right, just a moment ago, had no line of sight. The ones on the left now currently have no line of sight, and that's due to their position on the ship. So it can occasionally get all 4 weapons, or all your weapons, with no line of sight, just like here, and you just have to wait until your target is actually in position again. Now, depending upon the weapons mounted on the ship, the pilot may or may not have access to a weapon for their own use. In this case, Commander Muti-Crew does have their own weapon, and that's because he's got a gimbaled weapon there. And as a gunner, you can't use gimbaled weapons, so they remain exclusively for the use of the pilot. Once a crew member takes on the role of gunner, then the weapons the gunner is controlling are no longer available for use by the pilot. They're exclusively to be used by the gunner. So here we are then, trying to take on a T9, all going relatively simple here. His shield has completely gone and we're just about to destroy it. Its hull is nearly gone and now it's down to 0%. I believe at this point Commander Maraxis there at the top was in a fighter. At one point during this session we did have 3 additional multi-crew members, so there was 4 including the pilot. The pilot himself, 2 people out in the fighters and me on the gunner. Now whilst in multi-crew, any of the crew members can actually go out and use the free cam, which I was doing here. It does get a little bit janky if you keep switching between the modes, as is happening here. I'm flying all over the place, but this is just a proof that it actually does work. You can use free cam when someone else is flying the ship, so that should allow people to get some very nice video footage. The third person cam on the turret did take a little bit of getting used to for me, but that's mainly because we're used to using the game from a first person's perspective up until this point. But as soon as you learn to ignore the ship and just pay attention to your target, then you won't have any problems. There are a few bugs. You can see all my HUD elements are now missing, and they came and went multiple times throughout the play session. But do remember, it is a beta of course, so bugs are to be expected, and the multi-crew was delayed quite a number of times. It was due to arrive again yesterday, but Frontier found some bugs at the last minute and so delayed it again, and they finally decided to go ahead and launch it today, come what may. But as you can see here, I played for about 30 to 40 minutes here, and everything went really smoothly. The really only glitches I did come across were the ones there for the HUD element. No latency issues, nothing like that. Everything worked as I would expect it to work. And there were no instancing issues either. The crew managed to stay on board the ship without any problems whatsoever. There were problems later on in a different play session, but I'll get to those in just a bit. So after a while of playing around in this session, it was time for me to leave. You can see at the top there's a different crew member there, Dandrix. So a few people came and went during this play session. It all worked very fast. As soon as one crew member dropped out, it wasn't very long until someone else arrived. And that's basically because the guy here, Commander Muti-Crew, has got his ship open for multi-crew. So when you're ready to leave, just go to the multi-crew menu there and choose Leave Crew. And that will take you to a summary screen, which you can see here, giving you a bit of information about the session. You can see the total session there was 34 minutes. And I spent 32 minutes of that as a gunner, making 11 kills. And you can see for that short amount of time, we made 731,000 credits. That amount of money is given to every crew member who was there during that session, so quite a significant amount. And it does open the option, of course, for brand new players to jump straight into a multi-crewed ship. They could find themselves on board a cutter and find themselves with 1 million credits or 2 million credits very fast. Opens up all sorts of possibilities. Some may consider their potential for abuse there. Others may, of course, consider this perfectly fine and a good opening up of new gameplay mechanics. So here I am on board another ship, and you will recognise this one, no doubt. This is Commander Vindicator Jones, the rather famous YouTuber. He makes some excellent Elite Dangerous videos, and I will link his channel in the video description. If you've never seen him, do head on over and check his videos out. I highly recommend them. Now, for those of you that don't know, Commander Vindicator Jones is located in Australia. I'm located in England, so there's quite a distance between us, and this did cause for a number of problems. It seemed there were a number of latency issues between all of us. At first, I thought it was just down to some bugs, but straight away you can see some of it coming into effect here. The ship there at the top of the screen, I did actually select that, and it got deselected as a target. Now, I didn't deselect it as a target. That seemed to keep happening on its own, and throughout this play session that was a constant problem. And there it happens again. I selected the ship and it automatically gets deselected. And you'll see what seems to be some other glitches coming into effect in a minute. When I start shooting, the weapon is firing off to the sides of the ship I've got targeted. It does a few shots where it's actually targeting the ship, but then it fires off to the side. And now I notice he did deploy chaff there. That's not the reason for me missing the target, and that's not the reason for the ship getting deselected as a target. You'll see as soon as the chaff wears off, we have the same problem cycling over and over again. I'm glad that this wasn't my first play session with the multi-crew, because it may have given some bad impressions. But we've got to remember here, as I said before, it is in beta, and there is quite a huge distance between me as a player and Vindicator as well. In the previous session we didn't have any problems like this, but this one did become quite a bit of a nuisance with the ship constantly being deselected as a target. Now, although it didn't happen too much during this play session, there were a few occasions where rubber banding was a bit of an issue, and this was particularly pronounced when we left and then returned again to the Hazres site. You'll notice that as soon as we drop out of Super Cruise here, we get a bit of a problem, and it takes a little while to actually drop out as well. And here you can see it, we're just about to drop out, and what happens is I see the ship go flying right through the ring system there and then bouncing back again. But from Vindicator's perspective, that actually didn't happen at all. So all in all, these few problems aside, I found Multi-Crew to be a very enjoyable experience. The gunner role is particularly great. Now, I do think a few people are going to find it a bit arcadey. It's to step aside from some of the more stronger simulation aspects of the game that we've had up until now, but I can totally understand why Frontier have delivered Multi-Crew, or the gunner position, in this form. It's very intuitive, it's easily accessible, and it also means that as the pilot is rolling and pitching the ship around, you keep a fixed perspective, and that stops a lot of problems that you may otherwise have with a fixed turret cam. The other thing worth noting, of course, is the additional pip we get. You can see Vindicator's orange pips there down on the bottom right hand corner, and you can see my blue pip, which I've got put into weapons here. This is an additional pip. It's not divided amongst the existing energy on the ship. As soon as a new crew member joins, you get a new and additional portion of energy added to the ship. So that comes in hugely beneficial. And to be perfectly honest, I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of impact players say this is going to have for their sessions of PvP. I'm sure it's going to make more than a little bit of difference when it comes to battles between a multi-crewed ship and a non-multi-crewed ship. So here I am then, I've left the gunnery position and I've deployed a fighter. The plan here was to follow Vindicator around for a little while and help out with some of the combat. But at this point the Haz-Res managed to empty itself out, so it was a little while before we found a target. Eventually though, we come across this Asp Explorer and made relatively short work of them. Now up until this point, I've only joined other ships as a crew member. I did try and have Vindicator on board one of my ships as we were going to go into a conflict zone, but a number of problems prevented that from being in this video. That's something I'll try and do for a future video. So all in all, Muti-Crew is looking to be a nice addition to the game, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of fun out of this. How it all plays out in terms of balance though and stability is something that remains to be seen. I've done 2 sessions here, one of them was pretty much perfect, and the other one come with its fair share of problems. So then, that brings us to an end of this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.